Excuse me. Victoria Whitmore's voice cut through the champagne chatter like a blade of ice. Her tone wasn't loud, but it carried enough authority to silence the space around her. Every head within earshot turned toward the confrontation. Manhattan's elite, dressed in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, shifted their eyes to the elegant black woman standing calmly near the entrance. "I don't recall seeing your name on our guest list," Victoria continued, her perfectly arched eyebrow rising in suspicion. The woman in the black dress did not flinch. Her gaze was steady, her posture unshaken. "Perhaps you should check again," she said quietly, adjusting her simple black clutch. The words were soft, but they landed with weight. Catherine Whitmore, Victoria's mother, stepped beside her, pearls glittering under the chandelier light. She gave Kesha a slow once-over, her lips curling ever so slightly. "The help should know their place," she murmured just loud enough for those nearby to hear. Marcus Whitmore, Jr., standing a few feet away, smirked and lifted his phone, already filming for his Instagram story. "Dad, security," he called out with a grin. James Whitmore, Sr., the family patriarch, nodded toward two approaching guards. His Rolex caught the chandelier's glow as the family formed a semicircle, an unspoken show of dominance. Their unified disdain was as thick as the scent of expensive perfume in the air. Dr. Kesha Washington glanced at her Diamond Philippe watch. Exactly 8:47 p.m. In her mind, she asked herself a quiet question. Have you ever been so underestimated that people couldn't see the power you held right in front of them? The Meridian Club's penthouse sparkled like a scene from an old money fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbow fragments onto the polished marble floor. Tonight's charity gala for the Whitmore Foundation had drawn Manhattan's most powerful families, each one here to see and be seen. Every detail, from the gold-trimmed menus to the string quartet's soft background music, spoke of wealth and influence. The two security guards in sharp black suits approached. Their earpieces crackled as the taller one spoke. "Ma'am, we need to see your invitation," he said, one hand resting lightly on his radio. Kesha reached into her clutch with a deliberate calm. Around them, the circle of onlookers widened. Phone cameras tilted upward. A low murmur passed through the crowd. Somewhere behind a champagne flute, a voice whispered, "World star hip-hop." Victoria smirked and leaned toward a friend, making sure her voice carried far enough. "Oh, this should be good." A woman in oversized designer glasses raised her phone higher. Her Instagram Live viewer count ticked upward, 847 and climbing. Comments began to fly across her screen, mixing playful taunts with a few biting remarks. Kesha extended a cream-colored card, its gold embossing catching the light. The taller guard took it, his eyes scanning the text. He frowned slightly. "This appears to be legitimate," he said slowly. "Appears." Catherine's laugh was brittle, like glass on the verge of breaking. "James, didn't the club update their security protocols?" James Sr. straightened his bow tie, his voice firm and confident. Sometimes invitations get misplaced or photocopied. The implication hung heavy in the air. Several guests exchanged knowing looks. Marcus Jr. kept filming, his phone angled perfectly for the drama. His smirk widened. "Content gold," he muttered under his breath, already thinking of the caption. Kesha's eyes never left James Sr. "I can verify the invitation's authenticity," she said quietly. Victoria folded her arms. "And how exactly would you do that? Do you have documentation from board members who sponsored your attendance?" The crowd pressed closer. The room's energy shifted. No longer just idle curiosity, but a sense that something far more significant was taking shape. From the corner of the room, Dr. Elizabeth Carter, a respected surgeon and longtime figure in Manhattan society, began to step forward. "Victoria, perhaps we should—" "Dr. Carter, with all due respect," Catherine cut in smoothly, "we have protocols for a reason. The Foundation's reputation depends on maintaining certain standards." It was polite language for an ugly message, and everyone in the room understood. The coded words carried centuries of unspoken exclusion. A passing server brushed against Kesha's arm, causing her clutch to shift slightly. A business card slipped free and landed on the marble floor. One of the guards bent down and picked it up, Washington Capital Management. He read aloud. The name made him pause. Never heard of it, Victoria said dismissively. Probably some small firm trying to network above their level. The live stream comments exploded. Washington Capital is a $50 billion hedge fund. Dummy, one viewer typed. But the Whitmores didn't see the wave turning against them online. Ma'am, if you could just step aside, the second guard said carefully. We can sort this out privately. Privately? Kesha's tone was still calm, but there was a new edge beneath it. The guard hesitated without knowing why. James Sr. glanced at his watch. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement in precisely 14 minutes. Let's expedite the situation. Catherine smiled sweetly. Yes, we can't have disruptions during such an important evening. A Bloomberg reporter in the corner looked up from his phone, his gaze locking on the business card in the guard's hand. He knew the name. He knew exactly what it meant for tonight's big reveal. And so did Kesha. The air in the Meridian Club's penthouse seemed to thicken. The clinking of champagne glasses faded into an uneasy silence, broken only by the faint hum of the string quartet in the corner, a sound so delicate it fell out of place against the tension building at the center of the room. Dr. Kesha Washington stood still, her cream-colored invitation in the guard's hand and the business card of Washington Capital Management resting between his fingers. Around her, the Whitmore family's polished expressions of superiority masked a growing irritation. They had expected her to shrink back, apologize, or quietly leave through the service elevators. But instead, she stood her ground. Victoria tilted her chin slightly higher, tried to reclaim control of the moment. I think we've wasted enough time here, she said, motioning toward the service elevators. The main elevators are for guests. I'm sure you understand. Kesha's lips curved into the faintest smile. I said, I'll wait for the main elevators. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Calm, steady, unbothered, as though she had all the time in the world and no reason to move for anyone. Her tone carried something else too, a quiet warning that no one in the room could yet name, but they could feel it. The taller guard shifted uneasily. He glanced toward James Sr. for direction, but the patriarch only nodded impatiently, as if shooing away a minor inconvenience. Let's move her along, gentlemen. We have business to attend to. Kesha raised her wrist slightly, checking the time, 8:47 p.m. 14 minutes until the Whitmore Foundation's big announcement. 14 minutes until they would proudly reveal their partnership with Meridian Industries, a $1 billion deal that would secure their legacy for years to come. But Kesha's voice, when she finally spoke, was soft enough to make the entire room lean in. Time is valuable, Mr. Whitmore, especially when millions of dollars are at stake. James Sr. gave a short laugh, taking her words as a sign that she understood her place in the hierarchy. Exactly, he said. So I'm glad you comprehend the significance of this evening. The irony was lost on him. Victoria's smirk deepened. Perhaps she just doesn't know the kind of event she's walked into. But in the far corner, the Bloomberg reporter's fingers hovered over his laptop keys. He knew the name Washington Capital Management. He knew their portfolio, their reach, their influence. And as his eyes darted between Kesha and the Whitmores, he started to understand the stakes in a way the family clearly didn't. Kesha's phone buzzed. She reached into her clutch and pulled it out, glancing briefly at the screen. 3 missed calls. Meridian Industries board. A small flicker of satisfaction crossed her face, so quick that anyone not looking closely would have missed it. The Whitmores didn't notice, but the reporter did. She dialed a number. The room fell into a strange hush. Even the violinists seemed to slow their bow as if sensing the weight of the moment. The call connected on the second ring. Hello, Marcus, Kesha said, her voice smooth and professional. Yes, I know you're in the middle of preparations, but we need to discuss the Meridian partnership. At that, the blood drained from James Sr.'s face. Marcus Jr. stopped filming. Victoria's champagne glass trembled ever so slightly in her hand. Who is she talking to? Catherine whispered, fanning herself slowly. The reporter typed faster now, his story began to take shape in real time. Whitmore Gala turns into unexpected corporate drama. Yes, Kesha continued into the phone, her tone cool and deliberate. I understand the contract was signed last week, but circumstances have changed. James Sr. stepped forward, his voice tighter than before. Excuse me, miss, but who exactly are you calling? Kesha held up one finger, a gesture so natural and so commanding that it froze in mid-step. The room, filled with some of the most powerful figures in Manhattan, seemed to collectively hold its breath. The live stream numbers ticked upward. 23,000, 27,000, 31,000, as the online audience began to sense that they were watching something historic unfold. Comments scrolled at lightning speed. She said, Meridian, OMG, Whitmore about to get wrecked. This woman is somebody. Inside the penthouse, the Whitmores were still blind to the scale of the storm building around them. Victoria leaned toward her father, her voice urgent. Daddy, what's Meridian Industries? Should we know that name? Catherine frowned. It sounds familiar. Wasn't that in the board meeting minutes? But Marcus Jr.'s voice, small and uncertain for the first time that evening, broke the tension. Wait, isn't that the company we're announcing the partnership with? The silence that followed was almost physical. Yes, Marcus, Kesha said into the phone, her words slicing through the air. The entire partnership. Cancel it. Execute the withdrawal immediately. It was the kind of sentence that could topple empires. James Sr. went pale. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor with a crystalline scream. Marcus Jr. whispered something under his breath. Though the room was so still, half the guests heard him. Oh, God, we're screwed. The live stream viewer count surged again. 45,000, 53,000, 61,000. Online, people were screen recording, sharing, tagging major news outlets. The hashtag Whitmore Gala began trending across New York. Kesha ended the call with the same unhurried grace she had shown all evening. She slipped the phone back into her clutch, her eyes finally locking on James Sr.'s. You were saying something about my invitation? The words were polite. The meaning was not. And for the first time that evening, the Whitmores didn't have an answer. The Whitmore family stood frozen, as if the marble floor beneath them had suddenly turned to ice. The echo of Kesha's last words, cancel it, execute the withdrawal immediately, still hung in the air, each syllable sharper than the sound of Victoria's shattered glass. No one moved. No one dared to speak. Even the clinking of cutlery in the far corner had stopped. The room, filled with people who normally thrived on small talk and social maneuvering, was locked in a collective stare. James Sr. finally found his voice, but it was no longer the booming tone of a man in control. It was thinner now, touched with a note of desperation. Dr. Washington, please. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Kesha's eyes didn't waver. Has there? Victoria stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble. The sound was too loud in the silence, each step feeling like a challenge. Look, maybe things got a little out of hand, but canceling the partnership? That's not necessary. Kesha tilted her head slightly, as if weighing the sincerity of the plea. Interesting, she said softly. When you thought I was just a nobody on your guest list, you were perfectly comfortable trying to remove me from the room. Now that you realize I have a stake in your evening, suddenly I matter. Gasps fluttered through the crowd. The live stream viewer count ticked past 78,000. Comments scrolled at lightning speed. She's about to drop a bomb. Watch this, y'all. This is the part where the tables turn. Big boss energy. Catherine clutched her pearl necklace. What exactly is your stake here? She asked cautiously. Kesha took a small step closer. The diamond watch on her wrist caught the chandelier light. My stake, she said, is not just with Meridian. Washington Capital Management doesn't only influence your deals, Mrs. Whitmore. We influence your company. James Sr.'s frown deepened. What are you implying? Kesha reached into her clutch again. This time, she pulled out a single folded sheet of cream-colored legal stationery. The paper was thick, expensive, official. She unfolded it slowly, deliberately, the sound of the paper rustling somehow louder than the whispers in the crowd. This, she began, is a copy of an SEC filing, Form 13D. You're familiar with it, of course, require disclosure when someone acquires more than 5% of a company's stock. The Whitmores exchanged uneasy glances. 18 months ago, Kesha continued, Washington Capital Management began a series of strategic acquisitions. Quiet, precise, and entirely within SEC regulations. As of our most recent filing, we own, she paused just long enough for the tension to tighten, 34.7% of Whitmore Industries' common stock. The words detonated like a bomb in the marble penthouse. For a second, there was no reaction. Then the murmurs erupted, small gasps, the shuffle of expensive shoes, the faint clinking of jewelry as heads turned toward the Whitmore family. Marcus Jr. phone slipped in his hand. He fumbled to unlock it, typing frantically into a search bar. A moment later, his face went pale. She's not lying, he whispered. She's the largest single shareholder. Victoria's mouth opened, then closed. Catherine's grip on her pearls tightened until her knuckles turned white. James Sr. inhaled deeply, trying to summon his composure. Even if that's true, he said slowly, you don't control the board. The Whitmore Family Trust still holds. 31.2% combined, Kesha finished for him, her voice cutting cleanly across his. Yes, I know. Individually, you hold 12.4%. Victoria has 8.7%. Marcus Jr., 6.3%. And Mrs. Whitmore, you hold 3.8%. I did my research. It wasn't just the information. It was the precision with which she delivered it. The numbers were exact, down to the decimal. There was no question that she knew more about their company than they had expected anyone outside their circle to know. The live stream audience exploded. 127,000 viewers now, flooding the chat with messages. She OWNS them. Largest shareholder equals ultimate power. They work for her now. The Bloomberg reporter's fingers flew across his keyboard, the headline already forming in his mind. Whitmore Industries faces possible hostile takeover after gala confrontation. Kesha folded the document neatly and slid it back into her clutch. I don't just have influence, Mr. Whitmore. I have control. And I have values. Values your family has displayed a complete lack of in the past. She glanced meaningfully at the last 20 minutes. 45 minutes. James Sr.'s jaw tightened. This isn't the place for her. This is exactly the place, Kesha interrupted. Because you didn't hesitate to try to humiliate me here, in front of 200 of your so-called peers. So you'll hear me here, in front of them as well. The room shifted. Guests leaned in, not wanting to miss a single word. Some were already texting friends outside, telling them to tune into the live feed before they missed the biggest social and corporate scandal of the year. Kesha's voice remained calm, even, but each word carried the weight of someone who knew exactly how to dismantle an empire without raising her voice. As the largest shareholder, I will be calling an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. The agenda will include leadership changes, governance reforms, and a review of your company's diversity and inclusion policies, or rather, your lack of them. It was no longer a social embarrassment. It was a corporate execution. Victoria's breath caught. You can't just... I can, Kesha said simply, and I will. And at that moment, every person in the room understood that the Whitmores were no longer the most powerful people in the building. The moment Kesha's words landed, I can, and I will, the atmosphere inside the Meridian Club shifted completely. It was no longer just a charity gala. It had become a public trial with a global audience. The marble walls, the chandeliers, the expensive floral arrangements, all of it now framed the biggest corporate humiliation Manhattan had seen in years. The Whitmore family stood in the middle like statues, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. But outside these glittering walls, the story was already exploding. The Instagram live feed that had started as Marcus Jr.'s smug little content gold moment had now passed 150,000 viewers. People weren't just watching. They were sharing it on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and private group chats. Within minutes, the hashtag Whitmore Gala trended across the United States. A new hashtag, Hashtag Whitmore Races began picking up speed, gaining thousands of mentions every few seconds. Clips from the stream. Victoria questioning Kesha's presence. Catherine's the help should know their place remark. James Sr. calling security. Were already being cut into short, viral snippets. On TikTok, creators were reacting in real time, pausing the video to explain to their followers just how badly the Whitmores had miscalculated. In the corner, the Bloomberg reporter, David Kim, hit send on his first breaking news alert. Breaking. Confrontation at Whitmore Foundation Gala. Largest shareholder threatens leadership shakeup over alleged discrimination incident. The notification began popping up on phones across Wall Street. Traders, analysts, and competitors all started reading. The name Washington Capital Management wasn't one they could ignore. Inside the penthouse, the Whitmores were only just beginning to realize how deep the damage could go. James Sr. leaned toward Victoria, his voice low but still tense. We need to stop this here. Now, before it goes further. It's already gone further, Marcus Jr. muttered, staring down at his phone. His voice was flat, almost lifeless. We're everywhere right now. TMZ just posted it. And CNN Business, and his sentence trailed off. Catherine clutched her pearls tighter. We can fix this. We just need to issue a statement. Something polite, but firm. But Kesha's voice interrupted their huddle like a scalpel through silk. Oh, you'll issue a statement, Mrs. Whitmore. But it won't be the kind you're used to. Victoria spun toward her voice sharp. You think you can destroy us with one scene at a party? Kesha met her glare calmly. I don't need to destroy you. You've done that yourselves. I'm simply making sure the world knows exactly who you are. That sentence hit like a blow, not because it was loud, but because it was true. Somewhere near the back, a young tech investor whispered to the woman beside him. She's not even raising her voice. That's the scariest part. The audience online seemed to agree. The comments section was a stream of awe and disbelief. She's surgical with it. Quiet power, loud power. She's about to change corporate America in real time. At that exact moment, Kesha's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, then looked directly at James Sr. The first call I made was to Meridian Industries, she said. But now, I'm hearing from your other partners. They're concerned. James Sr.'s face tightened. Other partners? Oh, yes, Kesha replied. You see, my firm doesn't just own a third of Whitmore Industries. We have stakes in many of your suppliers, your distributors, even some of your clients. And I can assure you they're watching this too. The murmur in the crowd grew louder. Guests were pulling out their own phones, scrolling through Twitter and Instagram, showing each other what was trending. Marcus Jr. looked like he might be sick. Dad, he said quietly, Barclay Manufacturing just pulled their pinned tweet. And he swallowed. And they unfollowed us. Victoria stared at him in disbelief. That's ridiculous, they wouldn't. She stopped when she saw the screen. Image is everything in our world, Kesha said softly. When your brand becomes toxic, people will distance themselves before they get burned. In the corner, David Kim typed again. His second update read, Update. Social media backlash against Whitmore Industries grows. Partners begin distancing themselves following viral gala incident. By now, screenshots of the Whitmores' faces during the confrontation were everywhere. Headlines were multiplying. The online narrative was clear. The old money family had tried to humiliate a guest, only to find she was the most powerful person in the room. For the Whitmores, the panic was no longer hidden. James Sr. stepped closer to Kesha, lowering his voice but keeping it firm. If you go through with this, you'll damage more than just us. You'll put thousands of jobs at risk. Kesha tilted her head. Don't mistake me for someone careless, Mr. Whitmore. I'm not here to burn a house down. I'm here to renovate it. The choice of words hung in the air, layered with meaning. Victoria, desperate now, said, We can fix this. We'll do diversity training, charity work, whatever you want. Kesha's eyes locked on hers. This isn't about what I want. It's about what your company needs to survive. For the online audience, it was the quote of the night. Within minutes, it was a trending tweet, racking up thousands of retweets. This isn't about what I want. It's about what your company needs to survive. Dr. Kesha Washington. By the time the gala staff announced, there were only 7 minutes until the scheduled Meridian partnership announcement. Everyone knew there would be no announcement, not the one the Whitmores had planned. Anyway, in fact, it was becoming clear that the next big announcement wouldn't come from them at all. It would come from Kesha. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. The Whitmore Industries boardroom had always been a place of quiet confidence. Dark mahogany panels, plush leather chairs, and a faint smell of polish with that whispered old money and control. But this morning, the air was different. Heavy, expectant, the kind of silence that settles before a storm breaks. James Whitmore Sr. sat at the head of the long oval table. But for the first time in his decades of leadership, the position didn't feel like his. His hands rested on the polished surface, but they were still not gesturing as they normally would during meetings. The weekend had been brutal. An avalanche of bad press, partner withdrawals, and internal panic. Victoria sat to his right, stiff in a fitted navy suit, her expression carefully neutral. Marcus Jr. was on his phone, scrolling with glazed look in his eyes, no doubt reading yet another article dissecting his now infamous Instagram story. Catherine sat quietly, pearl necklace perfectly in place, though she looked like she hadn't slept in days. The door opened exactly on time. Dr. Kesha Washington stepped in, flanked by 2 attorneys and a corporate restructuring specialist. She wore the same understated steel watch she had worn at the gala. The sound of her heels against the hardwood floor was unhurried, steady, unshaken. She took a seat directly across from James Sr., the symbolism deliberate, old guard facing new reality. "Good morning," Kesha said, her tone calm and professional. "Shall we begin?" A board member cleared his throat. "Dr. Washington, before we proceed, we'd like to acknowledge events of Friday evening." Kesha's expression remained neutral. The events that were broadcast over 3 million viewers in less than 48 hours. A ripple of discomfort moved around the table. James Sr. tried to take back some control. "We've all had a difficult weekend, but I think we can agree that what happened doesn't have to define Whitmore Industries. We can move forward." "That," Kesha said, cutting in smoothly, "depends entirely on the changes you're willing to make." She reached into her briefcase and withdrew a folder, sliding copies across the table. Each board member received the same neatly typed agenda. Emergency board meeting agenda. Leadership changes. Corporate governance reforms. Comprehensive diversity and inclusion policies. "The first order of business," Kesha began, "is leadership changes. As of today, I'm recommending the suspension of all senior management pending a formal review." Victoria's head snapped up. "Suspension? I'm the so." "You were," Kesha said evenly. "As of this meeting, your leadership is under review. Your actions on Friday night and your handling of the aftermath have damaged this company's reputation in ways that directly affect shareholder value. As the largest shareholder, I have a fiduciary responsibility to address that." A murmur spread through the room. One board member, a seasoned investor, nodded slightly. "She's not wrong. The stock's down 22% since Friday." Victoria's cheeks flushed. "That's because of the online hysteria." "It's because of your behavior," Kesha replied. The words landed hard. She moved on. "Marcus Whitmore, Jr., Chief Operating Officer. Your position is also suspended effective immediately. Your role in initiating and filming the incident has been documented and widely circulated. It reflects a culture of arrogance and exclusion that cannot continue." Marcus Jr. slouched in his chair. "You can't just—" "I can," Kesha said simply, "and I have." She turned to Catherine. "Mrs. Whitmore, as a member of the Whitmore Foundation Board, you will be resigning effective immediately. Your public comments during the incident directly conflict with the values this company must now uphold." Catherine's lips pressed into a thin line. James Sr. straightened in his seat. "And me? You will retain your board position," Kesha said, "but your voting privileges are suspended for 6 months while we conduct a governance review." James Sr.'s jaw tightened. "You're dismantling my family's legacy." "No," Kesha replied. "I'm saving it." She moved to the second agenda point, corporate governance reforms. Whitmore Industries will adopt the Dignity Protocol, a mandatory program that enforces professional respect and inclusive leadership at all levels. It includes anonymous reporting mechanisms and quarterly audits. A board member raised an eyebrow. This is ambitious. It's necessary, Kesha said. Your brand has become synonymous with discrimination in the public eye. You cannot operate in today's market without addressing that head-on. She slid another document across the table. Point 3, diversity and inclusion policies. Every executive will undergo 40 hours of certified diversity and bias training. The company will establish a $50 million minority business development fund with matching contributions over the next 3 years. Victoria's voice was icy. So you're turning this company into your personal social experiment? No, Kesha said, locking eyes with her. I'm turning it into a company that will still exist 5 years from now. Her tone left no room for argument. The board voted. The results were swift. Victoria's suspension passed 6-2. Marcus Jr. S. removal as OO was unanimous. Catherine's resignation from the foundation board passed without discussion. The Dignity Protocol and Diversity Fund were both approved for immediate implementation. When the meeting ended, Kesha gathered her papers calmly, as though she hadn't just rewritten the company's future. We reconvene in 30 days for progress reports, she said, standing. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back at James Sr. You have an opportunity, Mr. Whitmore. Don't waste it. The click of the door closing behind her was the only sound in the room for several seconds. No one doubted it. The Whitmore empire had just shifted. The Whitmore Industries PR department had never worked so fast in its history. Over the weekend, they'd watched helplessly as the company's name dominated headlines for all the wrong reasons. The viral video from the gala had hit over 3 million views in just 48 hours. TikTok reaction videos dissected every second of the footage, while LinkedIn posts from diversity consultants and corporate leaders called it a case study in how not to handle unconscious bias. Monday's emergency board meeting was over, and the consequences were set in stone. Now came the next step, public accountability. By Tuesday morning, a press conference had been scheduled. The media presence was overwhelming. Outside Whitmore Industries headquarters, news vans lined the street. Reporters clustered behind metal barricades, microphones ready. Protesters held signs reading "Diversity is Power" and "No More Corporate Racism." At exactly 10 a.m., James Whitmore Sr. stepped up to the podium. The weight of the past 72 hours was visible in the slump of his shoulders. Flanked by remaining board members, minus the suspended family executives, he unfolded a single sheet of paper. The room fell silent. Cameras clicked. Live stream comments began scrolling faster than anyone could read. I stand before you today, James began, to address an incident that occurred during the Whitmore Foundation Gala on Friday evening. My family and I made serious errors in judgment. We acted without respect, without inclusion, and without the values we claim to uphold. For that, I want to offer my deepest and most sincere apology to Dr. Kesha Washington and every person who saw our actions as a reflection of corporate America's failures. His voice cracked slightly on the last sentence, but he pressed on. What happened on Friday night was wrong. It was unprofessional. It was discriminatory. And it does not represent the Whitmore Industries we want to be moving forward. We have begun implementing immediate reforms under the guidance of our largest shareholder, Dr. Washington, to ensure that every employee, partner, and guest is treated with dignity. The apology lasted just over 3 minutes. But by the time he stepped away from the podium, the live stream had peaked at 500,000 viewers. Clips of his statement were instantly uploaded to every major social platform. But the reaction was mixed. On Twitter, some praised the public acknowledgement. Rare to see an apology this direct. He admitted it was discrimination. That matters. This is how you start repairing trust. Others were less forgiving, only apologizing because she owns a third of their company. Talk is cheap. Let's see if they walk the walk. Meanwhile, Dr. Kesha Washington's name continued to trend. Her measured silence since the gala was fueling even more interest. When asked by reporters for a statement, she simply said, "The apology is a beginning. The work is what matters." Inside Whitmore Industries, change was already underway. The Dignity Protocol rolled out in all 12 states where the company operated. Internal emails outlined the mandatory diversity and bias training schedule for executives. With start dates less than a week away, the $50 million Minority Business Development Fund was formally announced, with a press release listing partner organizations in underserved communities. Victoria, now officially suspended, began her 40 hours of certified diversity training that Wednesday. Her first session was led by a Harvard Business School professor who specialized in leadership transformation after public scandal. Privately, she hated every minute of it, but publicly, she kept quiet. Marcus Jr., stripped of his COO title, was assigned to a corporate rehabilitation program that required him to shadow executives in minority-owned partner companies for 3 months. His social media accounts were deactivated at the board's order. Catherine, no longer on the foundation board, began meeting privately with black women entrepreneurs, a condition of her resignation deal, to hear firsthand about the challenges they faced in the business world. For employees watching all this unfold, the shift in leadership tone was undeniable. "I've been here 12 years," one department head wrote anonymously on the company intranet, "and I've never seen the board move this fast on anything." But outside the company walls, public opinion was still a battlefield. Late-night talk show hosts joked about the Whitmore Gala being the most expensive networking mistake in history. Business podcasts debated whether Dr. Washington's takeover-style intervention was corporate revenge or strategic leadership at its finest. By Friday, exactly 1 week after the gala, the viral video had surpassed 10 million views. The original Instagram live stream, now archived, was being studied in university business courses. A Harvard law professor even posted a breakdown of Kesha's legal positioning during the incident, calling it a masterclass in leveraging corporate power against discriminatory culture. Through it all, Kesha remained focused. She didn't bask in the chaos or gloat over the family's downfall. Her team was already working on the next phase, restructuring Whitmore Industries to make sure the changes weren't just cosmetic. She knew the public apology was only the start. Real transformation would take time. And in part 7 of this story, that transformation was about to become the company's greatest strength. 2 years after the night that shook the Whitmore family's empire, the company was unrecognizable in the best possible way. The marble penthouse of the Meridian Club, once the stage for humiliation and arrogance, was now a place of open dialogue and learning. Every month, it hosted what employees called Dignity Dialogues, conversations between executives and staff about workplace culture, respect, and inclusive leadership. What began as damage control had evolved into the company's greatest strength. The Dignity Protocol, implemented immediately after the scandal, became a model for other corporations. Every Whitmore Industries employee, from the C-suite to the factory floor, completed mandatory training on unconscious bias, inclusive leadership, and ethical decision-making. Anonymous reporting systems gave workers a confidence to speak up without fear of retaliation. Quarterly diversity reports were published publicly, tracking progress in hiring, promotions, and retention. The numbers spoke for themselves. Employee satisfaction rose 31%. Customer loyalty increased 27%. Annual revenue grew 19% despite the initial post-scandal drop. Discrimination complaints dropped to 0 for 2 consecutive years. The $50 million Minority Business Development Fund, co-financed by Whitmore Industries and Washington Capital Management, had already supported more than 200 minority-owned businesses nationwide. Many of these partners later became integral parts of Whitmore's supply chain, reducing costs while increasing innovation. Victoria returned to the company after completing her rehabilitation program, but she came back different. Her leadership team now included 3 vice presidents hired from historically black colleges, 2 Latino department heads, and an indigenous supply chain director. In her first major speech as reinstated COO, she admitted, "I thought business success gave me the right to decide who belonged in my world. I was wrong about everything." The comment went viral, But this time, for all the right reasons. Marcus Jr. reinvented himself entirely. His Privilege Check podcast, where he discussed corporate bias and interviewed minority leaders, became one of the most downloaded business shows on Spotify, reaching 2.8 million monthly listeners. His most popular episode, The Night I Learned I Wasn't the Main Character, was downloaded over 15 million times and is now used in MBA ethics courses. Catherine turned her energy toward philanthropy that actually mattered. The Pearl Initiative, her new foundation for Black women entrepreneurs, offered capital, mentorship, and resources. With a 94% success rate for funded businesses, the necklace she once clutched in judgment now symbolized opportunity. But it was Dr. Kesha Washington's impact that left the deepest mark. She never sought the CEO role. She didn't need to. Her 34.7% stake in Whitmore Industries gave her the influence to shape the company's future without taking over. She chose transformation over destruction, building something stronger from the inside out. Her approach, now widely known as dignity-driven capitalism, became a movement. Within 3 years, over 847 companies signed onto the Corporate Dignity Alliance, pledging measurable inclusion practices and transparency. Together, these organizations employed more than 12 million people across North America. Kesha's strategy even influenced national policy discussions on corporate governance and social responsibility. At the United Nations Global Compact Assembly, she delivered the keynote address. Power isn't about what you can destroy. It's about what you choose to build. The applause lasted 4 full minutes. For Whitmore Industries, the scandal that once threatened to end them became the turning point that defined them. The company's story appeared in case studies at Harvard, Oxford, and INSEAD, taught as an example of how accountability, when paired with strategic leadership, could create lasting success. And in the hearts of employees, partners, and customers, there was a shared understanding. The night of the gala wasn't just a viral moment. It was a night an empire was rebuilt on dignity instead of dominance. The marble floors of Meridian Club still gleamed with old money, but now they reflected new possibilities. And somewhere in her office high above the city, Dr. Kesha Washington checked her steel watch, the same one she wore that night, and smiled. Time, after all, was always on her side.